Hello everybody, it's DuckFaden07 with another brew. I played similar deck in the past. It's Zoo Rhinos. It's a Rhinos deck playing 4 territorial Kabus and some other cards specific for the Zoo decks. Okay, in this version we have a huge number, 10 spells that cascade into these 8 spells, so Crashing Footfalls and Territorial Kabu. And we also have one very popular card that is played in Zoo Cascade decks. It's General Ferrous Rukiric. So this deck is based around making big creatures for 3 mana and or for free, and this guy is making 4/4 creatures for free every time. Basically, you cast a non-removal spell in this deck. Okay, so uh, the idea is that currently in the meta game, uh, two or three strongest decks in the February were Murktide or Rhinos probably, and maybe Hammer Time. And all of these three decks can really have a hard time dealing with General Ferris or Kirik. First, Murktide doesn't have a removal that can kill General, so if you are playing first and you resolve General on turn 3, basically it's unwinnable for the opponent if you do anything else for the rest of the game. You just every spell you play makes you 2 free 4/4 tokens, which is just crazy. Okay, so other than that, of course, deck sometimes just wins by because playing this 3 mana cascade spells, which then cascade into either Crashing Footfalls or Territorial Cow. Okay, I will explain why we're playing this. Okay, so if we have first, if we have General Ferris or Kirik on the field, which is very often turn 3 play with this deck if you have it, if it's any mid-range matchup that just don't play Ren and 6, which can ping General and kill it, you will probably play General on turn 3 if you have it in your hand and if it's safe to play it. So, or you don't need like huge number of blockers, or you're in extremely bad situation, whatever. So you will play General Ferris Rokirik, and when you play him, next turn you will make incredible value out of him, and while he's on the field, actually cascading into Territorial Cow is better than cascading into Footfalls. So if you play a Shardless Agent, for example, you get free 4/4 token, and then if you cascade into Cabo, you get one free 4/4 token and get a 5/5 Cabo, which has a great ability. If you cascade into Footfalls, you just get 2 Rhinos, so it's better to cascade into Cabo if you have a General Ferris or Kirik on the field. So that's pretty interesting interaction. So a lot of the decks in the format just don't have a removal for this guy. And once you play him on a turn 3, basically Cabo becomes better card in your deck than Crushing Footfalls. So it's you get more power, you get a creature with a very good ability, and you get a creature that you can play on turn 2 and be really, really aggressive. Just this guy attacking for 5 on turn 3 and being able to either discard draw from your hand or mess with your opponent's delirium or something similar. It's just very strong. So, okay, this other than that, we are playing another Cascade spell, Bloodbraid Elf. Bloodbraid Elf is great with General. If it doesn't hit General, it will hit some of the other 10 Cascade spells in the deck, which means if you go turn 3 General, turn 3 Bloodbraid Elf, hit Shardless Agent, then with Shardless Agent you hit Territorial Cowl, you get a whooping 3/4/4 tokens, which is just disgusting. Plus, you get Territorial Cow and you get the Bloodbraid Elf. So that accounts for amazing 20 power on the field with just playing one 4 mana card. So this deck probably one of the strongest decks to play Bloodbraid Elf in. So that's very nice. So for turn 2 you have 3 plays. Your turn 2 plays are either Territorial Cow, Fire Ice, and Leyline Binding. All these 3 plays are very, very good ones to have in your Rhinos deck, and it's one of the strongest plays you can have. Of course, tapping land on with Fire Ice, so it's already very well known. Also removing problematic threat or hate or Cascade hate, Teferi, whatever you have Leyline Binding. And the territorial, if not, you have territorial cow, which is just a really aggressive creature, even more aggressive than a Scion of Draco. And your opponent can't Fury him. It's a 5/5. So Fury doesn't kill him. They have to scam Fury just to kill this one. It's pretty good. And that's it on the sideboard. We're playing 4 Force of Negations. We don't have a spot in the main to play forces with the general. So we have Bloodbraid Elves. So when we are boarding in Forces of Negations, we are removing Bloodbraid Elves and another multicolor card mostly, because we are rarely just bringing in Force of Negations, mostly bringing in something else too. And when we remove Blood-Red Elf, we also have to remove some of the monocolored cards in a deck or just cut the General Ferris, for example. In some matchups, it's not often I do that, but there is 1 or 2 matchups I'm in for it. So, um, okay, these are the options. It is very bad to leave Force with the Bloodbraid Elf. Maybe there is one matchup where it's worth it to have that, like maybe but it's kind of questionable. Okay, so other than that, we have Orvar on the sideboard. This card this is a flex sideboard slot, definitely. I think this version can be a bit, it's a bit slower and doesn't have a Blood Moon hate for the creativity deck. And sorry, I meant to say that this version tries to rely sometimes on General Affairs Rokiric, and General Affairs Rokiric is not very good against creativity because they play Wrenn and 6, and only Wrenn and 6 decks are really once problematic for the General. All non-Wrenn and 6 decks, this is very hard target to kill. Almost no deck in a format play a card that can get rid of this guy. Just scam plays, few terminates, and that's mostly it. So it's not uncommon that this guy is just unkillable. And okay, we have endurances, force of vigors, Teferis. I think Orvars are flex spots definitely. Maybe um, with little less interaction in the main in the first game without force of negation. We need to have a better odds of winning in games 2 and 3 if we lose the first one. So I think Orvar is kind of a good targeted hate, but it's also very narrow. So I can see this slot being a Kasali. What is it called that you can play for free? Kasali Ambusher, or maybe Mystical Disputes, but Mystical Disputes are also awkward with Bloodbraid Elf, so that means you would have to take out your elves quite a lot, so it's not really something you want to do. So I think disputes are not for this version, but forces are good, forces are necessary, and you just sometimes sacrifice your elf for it. Okay, just be careful when bringing in force of negation. You have to, you don't, you have to be careful of your blue card count, so you can't take any Fire Rises, Shardless, or Ardent Plias out. But it's really good because in these matchups you mostly bring in the fairies too sometimes. But even if you bring in just force, having 14 of those spells, it's okay to have a consistent number of blue cards for casting force of negation, pitch casting. Sorry. Okay, that's it. So I had crazy good performances with this deck, and few games I lost were mostly my fault. And we'll just go through. I had 2 4-1 leagues in a row with this deck, and this was a one league, and this was another one. So we'll just go through some games of this last league. Maybe if I have time, also a few more games from the league before that. Okay, so I'm playing match 1 of this league, playing second, keeping decent hand, having early interaction. I have 2 Violent Outbursts, General Ferris. So this opponent playing Ursulence, but they don't know what are we playing, so they go for the Chalice, which was definitely a bad choice here. I just go for the Xander's Lounge. I just planned on you probably using this Leyland Binding. Also, just wanted to play it planned on turn two, so I'm sure I can play my spell on turn three, not to have to worry about top decking a land. So in this situation, I just play General Ferris. There is no need to play Violent Outburst. So because General Ferris, this deck has a very hard time dealing with General Ferris. They have Vulcan Ballista, of course, but if they don't kill it on time, it just gets disgusting pretty pretty fast, and you will see it. They have Vulcan Ballista in hand, but it just doesn't matter. So I get two Golem tokens, I get two Rhino tokens, I kill Karn immediately, and I have lethal for the next turn, so it doesn't matter that they kill my general. The general already did a job, so I just cast another outburst and kill this ballista, and it's game over. Okay, let's check out another game. You can see just how powerful this general really is. Even with a deck that has answers for it, it's still just so strong. Okay, again, pretty decent hand. Still have it Kavu on turn 2, which is very good play against my opponent's deck. They also play big creatures that they can cast early. So I just want to go for the Steam Vents here. In case they go for Reality Smasher, I plan to immediately exchange with it. So they go for the Tot Knot, discard my Fury, leave me with the two Shardless Agents in hand, feel pretty comfortable. My cow is already bigger than a Tot Knot, so I just start attacking immediately. Go for the Shardless. My opponent is playing a chalice. I think this is important to mention. So my opponent is playing four chalice, probably playing three or four chalice of the main, a chalice of the void in the main. That's why in this matchup I just sided out my crushing footfalls. It's if they have it and there is a large chance for them to having it. It's just the worst card in a deck and it can be problematic. So we just remove this. We have territorial cows to cascade into, and they hit also very well, very good. They also provide us with the card selection. My opponent goes for the all his dust is here, all his dust here, kills all my stuff, which is very good play for them at the moment. They also had the Tron assembled, but this deck, as I mentioned, before, this deck just never runs out of the gas, and they were able to kill my general, but drew into another cascade spell, which was kind of important for me to be able to kill this Ugin right away. So I sacrificed one of my elves to do it immediately. I still got another cow from my deck, so cow is very good here, enables me to continue attacking. So I just discard the land. I get another general. General is very good again here, but I decided just to try to go for the kill next turn, and I play Charles into another cow. So in case I draw removal, it's game over. And I did get Fire Ice to tap. I wanted to tap Reality Smasher because it can trade with my cowl. So in case they have something else, but I tap the Reality Smasher and my opponent concedes. That was it. Okay, that was game two against Unleash. That was this opponent. That was match one. Okay, so we could see in the game one we could see General Ferris Kirk shining, and in the game two, in the situation if my opponent had the Chalice of the Void, we could really see we could really see Territorial Cow shining and its real purpose. Okay, so turn one I go for the Crashing Footfalls. Also, in this version, when I played when people played Sign of Draco in this deck, they lot of them complained like If you want to play Sign of Draco turn 2, you can suspend the Crashing Footfalls on turn 1, but when you're playing Territorial Cabo, you can do it no problem. Just suspend your Rhinos on turn 1, play Territorial Cabo on turn 2, so you're still good. So second matchup was Green Tron. Green Tron just doesn't have too much chance against this deck. Maybe game 1, but yeah, they were kind of slow with lands, and I had a turn clock here, so they just kind of conceded that game 1, and that was a pretty easy win. They just didn't have enough solutions. I had to mulligan game 2 to 6 cards, 6 decent cards, no Force of Negation, but I have a Fire Ice on turn 2, General for turn 3, maybe try to just provide, make incredible value on turn 3 if possible. So just go for the Leyline Binding here, decide against Fire Ice. I think exiling this sphere was more important at the moment, not letting them additional draw a card. These cards can be really important for them early, being able to cast sorry, that spell that searches for a land or the something similar. So my opponent plays 2 Haywire Mites on turn 2. I don't know why they have so many Haywire Mites in. But I just go for the Charlest into Territorial Cabo, and you can see that in this situation, and this is not uncommon situation, this is situation that happens almost every game. So cascading into Cabo is really better than cascading into Rhinos because you get additional Golem token and you get Territorial Cabo, which is better than just getting second token. Okay, so my opponent got rid of General, but General already provided incredible value here, and I find another one anyway with. I didn't want to play another creature in case they find some mass removal. So I just wanted to hold my other cow in hand, just played my general, tapped their land on upkeep, and that was concede. They didn't draw into turn probably, and they weren't able to do anything here. So very quick games. A lot of these games are like this, really. Okay, so let us watch some harder game. This was two Tron matchups. Tron is pretty easy here. Okay, so this was mulligan to 5 cards. Um, mulligan to 5 cards, 5 decent cards though. So I just suspend Footfalls on turn 1. This actually wasn't ideal because this was Hammer Time matchup. So this mulligan to 5, just one Leyline Binding, wasn't really good, and I was thinking about removing this Springleaf Drum, but just having uh, not so many cards in hand, I decided against it to try to save it for when they played Sigarda Zeta or Hammer. I just had the Ardent Plea in hand, so I just decided to go for the Cascade, but my opponent has Spell Pierce. I have another Footfalls on Suspend for coming in for 3rd turns, but not looking good at this moment. Just one Leyline Binding in hand against 4 cards in their hand, plus Pure Steel Paladin, so pretty bad. They go for 2 equipments, draw 2 additional cards, equip, attack with everything, and I had to concede. That's it. Okay, let's go see the match 2. I go for the land turn 1. This is hand with Fury, plus a lot of Cascaders, which can be really good. So just I'm playing first, so I'm comfortable just waiting with the Fury for them to play more creatures. Another Sentinel is perfect. So I just pitch cast my Fury, kill both of the Sentinels, then cast Shardless, get Territorial Kavu on the field, and I really like Territorial Kavu in this matchup. It just provides card selection, which is can be really important. Like in situations like this, I was able to get a land here. A land can be really good. Land was very good for me in this situation, so I think just Kavu was a better option. For me, I was able to kill Hardcast Force of Figure because of it, destroy Urza Saga immediately. Now with Urza Saga destroyed, two good spells in my hand, pretty comfortable of winning this game. They have to have the nuts to come back into the game, really. So I just decide to go for the Bloodbraid Elf, cascading into General Ferrous Arculic means even if they have the Sigarda's Aid and Hammer, I still have a lot of blockers, and in a lot of cases, just I can just make more power on the field than they have. So but yeah, they go for the blocks here and decide against blocking with the Giver of Runes. So I get in with Shardless Agent for exactly 3 damage with Violent Outburst, and that was the game. I also paid the Esper Sentinel tax, and I'm pretty sure they don't have solutions for the Shardless Agent, so that was the win. Okay, so match 3 against Hammer Time, game 1 mulliganing to 5 cards was pretty bad, but having really good sideboard against the deck makes me feel pretty comfortable. Okay, I got all one player needs against Hammer Time. I have the Fire Eyes, I have Force Figure, I have Leyline Binding, I have Fury. I don't know if I can ask for something else, and I also have Territorial Kavu. If I just had the Crashing Footfalls instead, this would be disastrous. I would probably lose this game, but Kavu providing me a very early clock, sorry, plus uh, discarding cards from my hand I don't need, and finding me cards that I really need was really important. Like in this case, finding me the land immediately. They go for the token, so I kill the giver runes before they can give the protection. I just play my Misty, save, hold the Leyland Binding, and I go for the Force Figure and their upkeep, kill the Urza Saga before they get the hammer, so they make another construct token, but it's not really, it really doesn't matter much. I'm still holding Leyland Binding if necessary, um, but they exile my cow, which is fine. I still have another cow, I still have Binding, I still have Fury, so I decide to go for another Shardless Agent, and this was I first decide to go first for the attacks to get another red card with for Fury Pitch, and I did get another Cabo, so I was able to play this one and still hold Leyland Binding, which kind of guaranteed the win for the next turn. There's nothing they can have to win this, so they just play the Paladin, pass the turn. I go for the Leyline Binding, and that is the game. Okay, that was the game against Hammer Time. We'll watch this last game against I don't know what this opponent played. This was I think this was Living End. Okay, yeah, this was Living End. So turn one, I found out it was Living End, so it was a pretty bad hand against Living End deck. They also had a Fury, which was even worse, so not a really high chance of doing anything in this first game. And Cascade usually has a bad Living End matchup, but I think this version is slightly better. Even after they do the Living End, if you can play your General Ferrizer Kirik and the next turn, if you succeed to cast your Shardless into Kavu or Bloodbraid into two multicolor spells, you can stabilize pretty quickly. So I played my Shardless here, tried to cast my footfalls to try to block survive one more turn, but they have counterspell and that's it. Okay, so and that was very quick. Game one. Game two. Game two, mulligan to six. I decide to keep Cabo, two generals. As I said, the general can often just win the game against this deck if they go for the early living end and then you play the general. After that, a lot of things get come your way, but it happens. So I got the endurance, I got the force. I have two blue mana, but not two green ones. So I just need another green spell or another blue spell. And my opponent can't find a land, which was helpful. I find another blue spell, so I go for the general. My opponent goes for the subtlety. I have another general in hand, so I just bottom this one. And so again, now getting the green card for the endurance was perfect. So I was just able to play my general again, and this time I put it on top because I really need him as a threat to finish the game quickly. So just they go for the grief on their turn, leaving them with just one card in hand. Still don't have a land, so I go for the endurance. Remove their graveyard, put endurance in my graveyard. They discard the force of negation, which is okay because now if they go for the living end, I'm in a pretty good situation because I have Kavu and endurance in the graveyard, so it's really bad for them to cast it now. And I have general on the field, and when you have general field, usually it's a very quick clock, and I got Cabo to trigger my general, so they're dead next turn unless they draw a land to cast their living end. And that was it. My opponent just wasn't able to find that land in the top, I don't know, 10, 11 cards. So that was time for match 3, was it? Yeah. So I keep 7 here. My opponent is first now, so definitely harder, but everything is easier with Fire Ice. Unfortunately, my opponent has the Grief, but with the Totsis bug, I get another Force in hand, so it's Force is pretty good here because I have a Fire Ice in my deck, so I can just tap their land on their turn 3, so they're unable to cast to do their thing on turn 3, and on turn 4 I already have my force up and can do my stuff too, so it's much easier to play this way. Okay, so I draw into the fairy, also why Fire Ice is great. It gives you the turn to try to hardcast the Teferi. I resolved the Teferi, it's pretty much game over. For my opponent, first they have to have solution for the Teferi, then they need to get solution for the Force of Negation in my hand, and I have a lot of these cascaders getting in fast, and they immediately concede. That was the game. Okay, we will now watch some more games from the league before that. So let's just start with these ones. Okay, this was a match one against. This was match one against, I think, 8 Blast. We will watch the losses after this. I go for Indata Triumph immediately so my opponent doesn't remove it because I have Steam Vents in my hand. Really want to play a turn 2 plus Territorial KO. My opponent goes for the Epicure, plays the drum. I just go for the Territorial KO, hoping for KO to block the Ragavan here. And KO did exactly that. My opponent passes no attacks. So I was just able to play the Shardless. So I decided to start attacking with Kavu. I can get lethal pretty soon. I got two blockers for the next turn, so my opponent draws another Bomat Courier and goes in with everything. Uh, uh, Makes it through with two of their creatures. Plays the Light Up the Stage, another Epicure, and the Dragon Rage Channeler. But I get two Kavu abilities here. So I got played my Leyline and played the Fire Ice to kill the two remaining creatures, and now my opponent has just zero cards in hand, not able to do anything, and I have the lethal for the next turn, so that was it. Kavus again got me there with the 3-4 abilities from the Kavus, got me the Fire Ice I needed, looted some lands away from my hand. They were really good, so that was it. That was game one against Eat Blast. Okay, bit slower hand, just endurance, binding. Of course, I need a card here to make any of this work, but they can all be very good. I need a red card to be able to pitch Fury if needed, also endurance maybe, but we play a lot of these, so it's really easy to get them. So just play my island and hold Leyland Binding, but it was maybe a better play to just play Sacred Foundry tapped. I didn't expect them to play anything. Uh, they got this Sharpener Blast, so I was forced to shock in with Foundry to hold Violent Outburst or Leyland Bindings, whatever. So they just go for the token, find the Shadow Spear, play another Saga, then go for the attacks with Epicure, 3 cards in their hand at this moment. So just go for the Outburst to block the Epicure and definitely need to start attacking as soon as possible. So block with both. I attack first. They decide against blocking. So I just go for the Aden Plia, make two more tokens here. This was game two. I boarded out my Kavus in this matchup, so I only had a Crushing Footfall, so I was sure I'm gonna cascade into those. And I played Leyland Binding, remove their construct, so they don't have that extra mana on their next turn. They play the Synthesizer, play the Bomat, just one card in hand. Uh, they really can't do anything with just one mana, so I just kill the Bomat and do the lethal. That was it. Okay, so we can now watch next game. We'll watch the last two. I wanted to say that. I'll watch it in the end. It was a very good game against elementals. I don't didn't put a solution for the Elish into the sideboard. That was the reason why I lost the game. If that becomes like a more common matchup, definitely want to put some solutions for Elish on the sideboard, but just didn't play it too much. So I don't want it for now, but it is definitely an option. So game two, playing against Merfolks. My opponent goes for the Tide Shaper, which can be um, kind of scary when you don't play Fury in your deck. But like this, I just killed both of their Tide Shapers, played my Shardless Agent, and put them in a miserable situation. So I have 10 power here, it's a 2-turn clock, they have 2 lands, just 3 cards in hand. Their cards are just not powerful enough by themselves, they need the numbers of these merfolks to do a lot, so I just go for the Bloodbraid here, still holding the Outburst, the Fury, and I got the General, so They definitely can't beat this. They can play some spells, but they can't beat this. Okay, I attack with two of my guys. They just play another lord and concede next turn, that's it. Okay, so pretty easy game against Merfolk. I just removed their Ethervial, and then I just removed, sorry, I just played Fury, and that was enough. They didn't have subtlety in this game, so that was it. Okay, a lot of options here. Okay, so this is, let me just explain why I did this. Because you saw the card that my opponent is playing. It's that 1 mana guy that makes land an island. So if I go for the breeding pool on turn 1, suspend the footfalls, they'll make my breeding pool into island, and I'm already just have another, and I already have an island in hand. So I decided to just I decided against it, and I just decided it wasn't worth it. I'll just go the safe route, and they had the tie shapers. I think I'd rather not. I don't think I'd rather have this breeding pool. So now I was. So now I had Fire Eyes to kill it, of course, but if they had more of them, then it can get kind of you can get into trouble by this letting this tie shapers live. I had everything in hand, so it was just a very good situation for me, and that also another thing why I thought there was just not necessary to risk anything. Um, I just go Bloodbraid, Shardless, Territorial Cow, already have two Rhinos on the field. My opponent goes for the subtlety here, but still a very good turn for me, attacking for 11. My opponent just has the subtlety on the field. Again, very hard match for the opponent. I still have the binding and binding and fury and fire ice in hand for the next turn. So pretty tough game for the opponent. I go in with everything. I play. My opponent makes mutable into creature. I remove their master and response. They play the trickster. They should have done this before combat. Um, they go for the draw, but I decide to kill the mutable. I think this wasn't. I should have killed the trickster. If I did that, I would have lethal immediately. So it was a small misplay, but it didn't matter anyway. Um, they got the chalice now. So they also have, I think, 4 chalice of the void in the sideboard. So like, I left some copies of Kavu and Footfalls in, but this is a matchup. Uh, this is matchup where Kavu is not good either because they play Merfolk Trickster. Merfolk Trickster kills Kavu for free, so I just rather have the Footfalls um, countered by Chalice than just getting Kavu killed for free. So I think I decided out 2 Kavus. Still like to have some copies of it. Decided out just 2 Kavus, and that was it. Okay, still won this very easily. Okay, let's. That was. We'll watch another win, and then we'll watch the loss against Elementals and finish the video. I don't want to go through all full 2 leagues, but most of the matches. Okay, this is typical hand, some cascade spells, Fire Rise plus Leyline Binding. Both of these spells are very good turn through plays. Fire Rise, of course, is usually more relevant. So just on opponent's upkeep, go Fire Rise, so it's a lot safer um, to cast your turn 3 spell this way. It ended up being Proves, so I just casted Charlotte's Agent on turn 3, getting 10 power on the field. I still have Leyland Binding plus Outburst for the next turn, so looking pretty good. My opponent plays the Soul Scar, plays the Sprite Dragon. In case my opponent has some crazy stuff in their hand next turn, I decide to go kill the... Okay, so my opponent blocks here. I go for the Violent Outburst. So I get another power into my Rhino Tekken in case they have this, but so now they're forced to play both Mutagenic Growth and Lava Dart to make their Soul Scar survive, and I still have Kabu as a blocker for the Soul Scar if needed, if they have something crazy in hand. I go for the attacks for the lethal, so they have to do something. I get the ability from Kabu to draw this card, which is very useful. So again, this looting ability is just so so relevant so often, and I find red cards. I find a Fury to kill both of their creatures while still holding binding, and have a lethal for the next turn. My opponent goes for the iteration, finds the bubble, finds the creature, finds the land, and I have the Leyland Binding to finish him off, and that was it. Okay, that was, sorry, game 1 against the Pros. They're playing Flusterstorms on the sideboard, so I just, they don't really have a solution for the footfalls, for the cobbles, so I just boarded my footfalls out in this matchup. Still have a lot of removal in here, plus the endurance. So my opponent just goes all in for creatures, and I decide to go for the Fury. This way, if they have like mutagenic growth to save their guys, it's still I get to kill at least one and have the Leyline Binding for the next turn. I was able to kill all of their threats, and they just have nothing now with 3 cards in their hand, and I have a handful of Charlest, Endurance and Binding, so pretty easy job from now on. Provis usually doesn't even play Blood Moon. Eh? Okay, so I just go for another Charlest into another Cabo and holding Leyline. At this point, I'm just kind of have to be wary of the breach. So I have the Leyline Binding for breach in case they play it. They play the Spear, they go Giganta hand. And now I have mana to play both Endurance and Leyline Binding for the next turn, so I go Leyline Binding before attacks, loot away the land with the Kavu, and just hold the Endurance for their turn. They're on 6 life, which means if they play Giganta, have lethal with Endurance, so they just go for it. And I cast my Endurance after that, and my opponent concedes end of turn. That was it. Okay, that was a match against Prowess, and we'll now watch the defeat against Elementals. In these two leagues, both ended up 4-1. I had 2 defeats. One defeat was against Amulet Titan, where I just didn't really pay attention to the match a lot and missed my opponent had Boseiju in hand with the Titan ability. So it was my fault, and the second loss was against Elementals. Unfortunately, my opponent was playing first. If I was playing first this game, I think I would definitely win this one pretty easily. I went for the Fire Ice on turn 2. On turn 3, played my Shardless Agent. I kind of thought they probably have the Fairy in hand, so just casting the General Ferrous wouldn't be productive, and they would just bounce it. I wouldn't get any value, so I was just trying to, at this point, double spell on with the 5 mana. I went another shardless to find Rhinos this time. I had a lot of the pressure on the field at the moment, but my opponent had the best hand they can have. Omnat here into Prismatic Ending, one of my Rhinos, and find the Elesh Known, put Elesh Known in hand for the next turn. So I go attack with all my. Unfortunately, didn't find a general this turn. If I had the land for the general plus Cabo plus token, I would be in a pretty good situation. But now my opponent had Elish on the field. But I think this is a really good opportunity to see just how well this deck can grind, because you know that when your opponent does the Elish thing plus Risen Reef thing, maybe this was a fail. Yeah, this was probably a fail and probably a reason why I lost this match. So I played a Fire Ice. I should have made probably attack first. I played Fire Ice before, and first, and this way they got the two Risen Reef abilities. So I attack with the two of my creatures. To attack with two of my creatures and cast my General Ferris Kirik. I discarded the second one with Kawa ability. If I was able to play General Ferris last turn, I would make too much tokens in these next two turns. My opponent wouldn't be able to deal with it. But you can see just how grindy this deck really is when your opponent with is having Elesh Norn on the field, and you're kind of making it a problem for them. So I just play the two of my cows, get a huge number, put 20 power on the field this turn, and next turn just trying to find the Fire Ice here to get rid of uh, the Teferi to play my Charles. Did find it, get the Fire Ice to kill the Teferi here, but this is what you have to do to beat sometimes beat this deck. You just have to have unanswerable Elish Norm, doing infinite of these elemental abilities. At any point, I was still kind of in the game. If my opponent just 23 cards in the hand, if they just flooded out it at any opportunity, I will still have some chance here. They didn't have much at this point. They were just doing the Bosager thing. So I go for another Bloodbraid Elf into Violent Outburst, into another Footfalls. So I decided to go for the attacks. If I just played the previous to this a bit better, I would be in a so much. I would be in a situation where I could actually threaten to finish this game. My opponent lost all their permanents, just Elesh Norn, but have enough of find enough of the cards, enough of the good cards left in the library to finish this thing. So yeah, at this point it was over. Okay, these were really long games. And again, this matchup is tricky, mostly because Teferi and Ren 6. Ren 6 and Teferi are biggest problems, and Territorial Cowboy is also big help there too. So I go for the suspend on turn 1, play turn 2 Cowboy. I go for the Foundry to make Cowboy 5/5 on turn 3 if I need it. But my opponent kind of has everything. They have the ending now. So I find another Shardless. I decide to go for the Shardless here. Um, but they have sorry. They have the fairy again to prevent my crushing footfalls from resolving, so I just suspend another footfalls, play the Leyline Binding again. They had another Teferi, so they kind of had a perfect everything they needed. I play blinding again to get rid of the Teferi. Play the territorial cow, so I'm still in the game. I still have another footfalls and suspend. I do the loot ability with cow, so still in the game. But my opponent has the ice wing here. Perfect opportunity for them to get rid of my Kavu and prevent my Charlotte from cascading, and that was it. So they just kind of had everything. So as the game still lasted, but it was really over at this point. So that was a loss, and another loss from Amulet Titan was because of my own mistake. So I won't show any. There was another win in that second league and another loss, but we'll stop at the video here. And I think that were enough of the games. That's it. Deck just can't. This version really can't run out of threats. You just can consistently each turn provide uh, uh, like 10, 15, 12, 20 power on the field. Like as you saw in that matchup, your opponent really has to have the nuts, like Elish Norn plus Risen Reef and a lot of elementals doing crazy stuff to get out of this situation. So we're just able for multiple turns, creating a lot of these tokens, and my opponent still have decent options for to attack. And if I just played maybe that Fire Ice bit better, would have a chance uh, to cut my opponent off resources, even with Elish Norn on the field. Okay, so that's it. It's pretty interesting league. Um, I hope you liked the gameplay. Hope you liked the deck. Um, if you want to help the channel, click subscribe, click the like button. Most people don't do that, but it can really help channel grow. And that's it. So, and I've just wanted to show you another option. Of course, a lot of people don't want to play a territorial cow in the main board of the Rhinos deck. So I think this general is really something to consider for playing in a Rhinos deck. General can work very good, as you saw in a lot of these games, and it can work even without Kavu. And like this, so you put Territorial Kavu is a very nice trick in the Rhino deck on the sideboard, as you saw in 2-3 examples. Throughout this league, I boarded out my Crashing Footfalls against some decks. I know they're playing a lot of Flusterstorms, Chalice in the sideboard, but really don't have a good answer to Kavu. So it's a really nice card to play on the sideboard, and you just make this your sideboard. And then you put some Teferis into main, add another Teferi, add another General Ferris, as you can now do it because you have enough blue cards to support Force of Negation from the sideboard. And now we have three Teferis on the sideboards, which are also very good against opponents playing Mirror Rhinos or Murktide deck, and it still triggers very good, maybe probably the best 3 mana card to trigger General Ferris. And Bloodbraid Elf is still very good in a deck, guaranteeing 2 tokens if you have General Ferris Rokirik. If you hit another Cascade spell, then you get 4 tokens with 2 from General, 2 from Footfalls, and it's a pretty good when that happens. Okay, so this is another variant. I think this version is also playable. I played the league with this too, and it felt decent. But you know that I really like to play Territorial Cabo, and after playing a league, 4 leagues with the Cabo in and 1 league without it, I can't really tell you which one I prefer. Um, I don't know, like I think version with Cabo main just felt more powerful with when you have General Ferris on the field, being able to have that 2 mana big creature that triggers it, and cascading it was just also felt very good often. So There are options, but I think General is definitely a card you can consider playing in the Rhinos. It's just another decent option that can make those matchups where they have a really hard time dealing with this card, and it's really hard to kill Hexproof from monocolored, so they can't Murktide can kill it with anything. If you play this at turn 3, it's mostly game over. If you play this turn 3 against opponent playing Rhinos, so it's also game over because you're just doing uh, just more value than them, and every one of your spells makes a free 4/4 token, and it's really hard to raise that. Okay, so that was it, and now finally this video is over, and yeah, that's it for today. Okay, goodbye.